stand tall, be strong, let us show respect for each other. Ngā mihi nui. Thank you. Okay, are there any apologies? We've got apologies from Delhi and from Terry. Are there any others? There being none. I get a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the report.
I'll move.
Rebecca and Robin, thank you. Okay, so we're going to welcome our submitters. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Thank you for taking the time to make submissions. What we will do is invite you to make your submissions in the order that we've got on the run sheet here. And you will have 5 minutes. At 4 minutes, we'll give you a little reminder that the clock is nearly up. And councillors are able to ask questions for clarification. The forum does not allow us to engage in discussions and detailed questioning, but councillors can ask questions for clarification. So that's the format. Unless there's anything I've missed, let's get straight into it. So if we work on the run sheet, do we have Anna Horn online? Anna, are you there? Okay, so we'll come back to Anna. Sometimes people on Teams have connectivity issues. We'll come back to Anna. Is Jane listed there? Are you with us, Jane?
I am.
Jane, thank you so much. Jane is on page 579. So give us a second, Jane, to...
My main submission to the committee is that of people with disabilities.
Yes.
One in 4 New Zealanders have a disability. 35% of those people are over 65, and we have a very old demographic. I am one of them. When the last waste management program was mooted, I told the council I simply cannot push a wheelie bin up my 100-metre steep gravel drive. It took 7 months for me to get a red crate to put my recycling in. For 7 months, I wasn't getting my ratepayer dollar. I was having to take my rubbish to the transfer station. Now I hear that under the new system, all rubbish will be going in a wheelie bin. What am I going to do? It seems that people with disabilities are always the last thought. To get my red crate, my 7 months, it was literally dozens of phone calls and emails before it happened. I tried to stop it from happening. I said, I cannot use this bin. What are you going to do? Nothing was done. So this is why I'm making a submission, because I want this foremost in your minds now, at the planning stage, not as an afterthought. I leave this with you.
Jane, thank you so much. You make some very relevant points, and this is something that we will be looking at because Council has a disability strategy, and our disability strategy has to line up with the other work that we're doing. Are there any questions from councillors?
It was mooted that I could put a tow bar on my car and then I could take the wheelie bin up to the road. Well, if the council wants to spend the $4,000 that I don't have on the pension to put a tow bar on my car, they're welcome to do so, but I simply don't have the funds for that. So, as I say, this is my submission, is to keep people with disabilities foremost in your minds we do our best to fit in with society, but it's about time some of the society tried to fit in with us. I wish
Thank you,
you all a
Jane.
good day.
Do you mind
Someone's
my
got a
asking,
question?
where are you located, Jane?
I'm on the outskirts of Coromandel Township at the very beginning of Colville Road.
Okay.
On 21D, which is not actually on the road. It's a paper road behind Pat Fraser's Reserve.
Okay.
And it's quite a steep gravel drive.
Okay, thank you for that. No other, Robin has a question.
Hi, Jane. Just to be absolutely clear, the blue bags are a workable solution for you.
Can you please speak slowly and clearly? I've got hearing aids, that's why I've got these on.
My apologies. Thank you, Jane. Am I hearing that the blue bags are extremely convenient and that the wheelie bin is going to be a major inconvenience?
I can throw the blue bags in the back of my hand-controlled car, along with my red crate with my recycling, and drive them up to the road. I cannot get a wheelie bin up to the road. My walking distance in a day is 200 metres. I have a very rare form of arthritis that affects about 700 New Zealanders. It affects all the connective tissue in my body, and it is extremely painful to push a bin up the drive. I've never tried because it would be hell.
Okay, thank you.
There has to be another way.
Thank you, Jane. That's very much appreciated. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Bye-bye.
So, Anna, we've got you on the line now. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, but can you hear me?
We can, loud and clear.
My God, I can't believe this. Thank you. I've had trouble. Kia ora, and many, many thanks for the opportunity to come this morning. I'd just like to, if I may add a comment to Jane, the previous speaker. I have yet to meet with some of the people in the pensioner flats that I'm on the trust to administer here in Whitianga. And we've had a couple of calls from a couple of the residents who are very concerned. So I can't report back on that to you, but just to flag, there obviously are a few concerns. For myself, I use one of those little tiny blue rubbish bags, and it takes me 4 weeks to fill one of those. I live alone, and I recycle and compost and all that sort of stuff. So just to give you an indication of how one can reduce rubbish. I'm just hoping this morning that all of you are aware of an announcement from government yesterday. I got a newsletter through Ministry of Environment advising of new regulations, new waste strategy, and improved recycling goals that are being put into place at government level. I would assume you may well have seen that, but if not, I can forward it to you. So all this work on rubbish and recycling is absolutely timely as far as council is concerned. And I just want to commend you on your efforts. I would like to, I won't go through my submission because you've read that, and if you have any questions, obviously, I would like you to ask me. But I do think the quantification is really important of what we're trying to achieve. And my main thing today is that communities have been pushing for this for many years. I mean, for myself, I took the first delegation of councillors to the first Zero Waste conference in Kaitaia in 2020. 23 years isn't too bad. I do, from experience, think it takes 30 years to make change, so we're just about there. But most importantly, from the local Muku Bay community point of view, There has been a huge amount of preparation by the community with the local waste trust to prepare for our new transfer station and recycling system. And what concerns me is that there have been delays in the beginning of the project and the getting the facility underway. And I'm very concerned that the huge amount of work that has happened at community level will start to be lost. The momentum will go. They have been working towards a date that was set by council, and that has been delayed out till December. And I fear, of course, that that may go out further. So I would just like to recommend that you keep pushing as fast and as hard as you can to get our own Seagull Centre and refuse transfer station actually ahead of the current schedule. Once we lose the local community's enthusiasm, then it's going to be an uphill battle. So that's my main point why I wanted to speak with you today, and I hope that's a helpful feedback.
Anna, thank you. That's very pertinent point, and we are deeply aware of the delays, and there are moves being undertaken at this end to try and address that. It is a concern not just for the community but for us as well. So there's work being done on that behind the scenes. Any questions from councillors for Anna?
Well, I've got one before I turn my audio off. What you're saying is you actually don't need 4 plastic bins because you've got your whole situation sorted. You don't really need a wheelie bin and all the other ones they're talking about.
I haven't, look, my apologies, I haven't had a chance to look at the annual plan and the proposals yet and changes there. For myself, I've been practicing reduce, use, recycle, and all the R's. I lost track of them all for many years. So rubbish has been something I've talked a lot of, as you know, over the years. There are other people, when I go for my morning walks, I see huge need for a good system, so I wouldn't decry, but personally, yeah, I feel like I'm pretty on top of things.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Anna. Those points are noted, and thank you again so much for your submission. And I know that over the years you've done a lot of work in this area for your community, so that's very much appreciated as well.
Kia ora. And if you do check out the Ministry of Environment website, they've got some very useful links, and they're going to be doing continuing webinars. So it's nice to know that we're really on the same page as that very forward-thinking work that's happening.
I did see that news item last night. Did anyone else see it? Yeah, very, very interesting. Central government direction, which is essentially going to mandate all of the stuff that we're doing now. So very, very pertinent.
I'll put in a plug for Eugenie Sage, the Green Minister at the time, who actually established that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Councillor, sorry.
Sorry, I've just sent a link to that, to the council distribution group.
Thank you,
to the recycling standard.
Thank you. Yeah. Former Councillor Fox, welcome.
I don't need too much of that. I'm trying to get that out of my life.
Good luck.
For my part, I think recent developments and what Anna has referred to, and indeed yourselves, have probably overtaken what I wrote. In my life, I was brought up to identify the cause of a problem and fix that, and not to play around with effects. And so to that end, I actually think when the questionnaire came out, it was more a document to get the answer that someone wanted. when the real issue to me is that local authorities should be banding together through Local Government New Zealand to force the hand of government to legislate, because what we have is a whole lot of, I often refer to pensioners on a single income and a pensioner flat paying to get rid of the waste that they have nothing to do with. So I think the narrative has to change and the direction has to go to government, because what we have is roughly 70 local authorities, all with staff playing in this area, all with consultants absorbing money in this area, and nothing getting done. And so for me, the emphasis should be throw this back to government and get them to actually fix the problem at their end. Then in our own little lives, we'll dig a hole in the ground and put our food scraps in or do those things. So annoys not the right word. It astounds me that we are still playing and trying to fix a problem ourselves in isolation with 30,000 people to pay for it, when we should actually fix it up at a higher level and reduce the waste. Now, I don't know what that number is, but it's probably 50% or more of waste, where the people who generate it pay nothing to get rid of it. We all end up paying. And so, yes, if the cost of a bottle of beer goes up, or the cost of a packet of wood goes up for the packaging that's around it, well, so be it. That's the true cost. And so that's about where I was. At some stage, I'd be interested in an update on the Mercury Bay transfer station. It has been promised for 3 years in a row. I suspect now it's about 3 times over budget. And yeah, the facility here is certainly not up to standard. So that was where I was, really. Change the narrative, fix the problem at source, and don't play around dealing with effects. That's it from me. Thanks.
Tony, thank you so much. I don't think you'll get any disagreement from us in the role that central government has to play, and certainly from where we sit, the LGNZ discussions are an important part of that, and that's something that we will be pursuing. So please rest assured that will happen. Any questions from councillors?
I'd only add to that, Len, that LGNZ, in my mind, are nothing more than a vehicle to push government policy. I see very little of what they do to actually promote local authorities' needs. And and so before I got out, I'm one that I, like Auckland, would have got out of it, because simply they're not there representing us. But yeah, that's a personal view. But having been around that for a while, I don't have any confidence in it. And for me, it was lucky that got pushed through before we got out of it, because I think you might have found TCDC would be out of it as well.
I guess the only comment that I'd make around that, Tony, is that the ability to change that direction is in our hands, and in the hands of the councils who are members of LGNZ, and certainly we won't be sitting on our hands. We'll be playing an active role in the direction that LGNZ takes. Any other questions for Tony? All right, thank you so much, Tony. Very much appreciated. Some good points. Okay, Anthony. Oh, that's all. Tony, sorry. You're on here in a very formal fashion. As Anthony.
All right,
please.
Through the chair, Tony would also like to present to Anne Todd's submission. So her submission's on 348.
348, thank you. Thanks. Give us a second, Tony, just to bring these up.
It's okay.
Okay, when you're ready.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name's Tony Jacobs. I live in Tairua, and I'd like to comment on the submission that that my wife Sue and I completed in support of the council's proposed waste management and minimisation plan. We both oppose the indiscriminate and irresponsible practice of burying everyone's rubbish in the ground. It's our future generations who are going to have to deal with our actions. Your proposal will reduce the amount going into landfill, so we thank you for that and well done. The problem is that recycling uses a lot of costly energy and labour, paid for with ratepayers' money. We are the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, getting rid of everybody's rubbish. The people at the top of the cliff are the packaging companies who actively encourage industries to use far more packaging than they really require. A lot of the packaging is really to encourage people to buy their stuff rather than to help contain it in a convenient way. We're pleased that central government apparently aim to ban the use of non-recyclable packaging plastic later this year. Please can you put pressure on our ministers to reduce the amount of all packaging to a minimum by penalising manufacturers who abuse the use of packaging unnecessarily. The large amount of wasted produced in the building industry has also been highlighted, and that also needs better controls in place. We've recently had a house built, and it's just staggering how much wastage there is, including the packaging of all the accessories and all the stuff you put in your house. So I guess that's my lot for now, folks, but it's something my wife and I feel very strongly about. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Tony. Are there any questions from councillors?
No, just fully support what you're saying.
Thank you.
So, Tony, just to, not a question, but well, I'll phrase it as a question, just so that I don't break the rules.
Back at the end.
Are you aware of the efforts, and I'm going to point to Rekha for this because Rekha was instrumental in organising public meetings, industry meetings with the Master Builders Association recently in Thames and Whitianga to work with them for the packaging that is generated on building sites, particularly plastic wrap around framing, and to recycle all of that. And what was uncovered during that was a lot of effort going in from the building industry to reduce and actively work to reduce the amount of stuff that is going into landfill from those. And I share your concerns because I had a huge bag of polystyrene that I wanted to get rid of, packaging, and I ended up taking it to Hamilton to get rid of it because I could not get rid of it anywhere on the peninsula. And I did manage to get it recycled, but it took not a special trip, but a part of the trip to Hamilton to get rid of that. That's not acceptable. So that's my question.
Can I, if I'm allowed, can I just add on the building wastage? I live up on Pacu Hill in Tarawa, and one day I looked down and there was a house that had been recently sold, but only a 2-storey large house. People came along, were taking windows out and fittings from inside. I thought they're going to reglaze it. Next day, a huge digger came in, raised its bucket and completely smashed the house from the roof downwards. It spent days doing it, left a huge pile of rubbish. They brought in huge rubbish bins and they chucked it all in there to go to landfill. I knew that house well, they were great fitted, there must have been so much recyclable stuff. And that was just one instance, but it made me feel sick to think all that house was just going to be buried. Anyway, that's...
Are you in touch with your Seagull Centre and your transfer station in Tairua?
Because I'm part of the Ratepayers Association as well, we had a talk by Magnus,
Yep.
yeah, and which was very good, and we're going to set up the recycling system.
So
yeah, I'm aware, and that is great, isn't it?
Thank you, Tony. No questions?
Thank you.
I have a question.
Councillor Gottlieb, we're just getting a little bit of feedback from your microphone there. Can you just try again?
Gary,
unmute. And you might just need to turn your computer mic down. Try that.
Can you hear me now?
That's better, thank you.
Tony, I gather you're aware what is proposed that each ratepayer's property will have 4 plastic containers now. They're going to have the one for the bottles, they're going to have the one for the waste, and they're going to have one for the recycling of scraps, and they're going to have the wheelie bin. So that's going to be 4 lots of plastic now.
I still think, though, that the root problem is at the top, stopping it being produced in the first place when it's not needed. Thank you, Gary. I understand your comment.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Gary. Okay, if there are no further questions, thank you. Much appreciated. And to Anne as well. Say hi from me. She owes me a coffee.
This is Anne's.
Oh, it's got Anne's one. Okay, sorry. I thought they were combined.
No, that was purely my wife and I. Unfortunately, I haven't got internet. I've been staying in tent, so I've just handwritten stuff out from her email to me. My name's Tony Jacobs, and I'm passing on comments on behalf of Anne Tuck. She lives in Thames also, most of the time, a busy lady, and she submitted on the council's proposed draft waste management and minimisation plan. Work commitments have prevented her from being here today. The key issue is that the new recycling system for Tairua dump station should first be made available to Tairua people or those on the eastern seaboard. Remember, Tairua people cannot easily get to Thames anymore. So when it comes to priorities and when everything gets set, Dan's asking that we give him consideration. Okay. Surely the staff at the dump could be better utilised to sort out scrap without incurring extra labour costs. I think Alan's point there is there are people waiting for when public come in, and the rest of the time some of them just, what are they doing? So they could be better utilised in their time to be used for sorting out recyclable materials. Okay? An indemnity document could be signed by anyone taking stuff to the dump, stating that they do so at their own risk. Anne is a lawyer, so I guess that is focused on her mind now. This would save the cost to transport recycled scrap to Thames via the long, fragile, narrow, windy road from Hickaway to Waihee. So it's basically saying that, you know, the sooner we can get something going locally, the better off we'll all be. But I'm just reading out Anne's comments for you. Okay, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions?
I can pass them on to her. Okay.
That first comment, are the longer transfer hours and the longer hours at the refuge transfer stations that they're going to be open, is that going to help the first concern of it?
Sorry, that last bit.
So the first concern that she mentioned was the ability to access the refuge transfer station when you're working.
Yeah.
So are the longer hours going to help alleviate that concern, do you think?
Well, I think the longer hours will help, but then it will also mean that there's more free time available when they're not dealing with the actual people coming in. People who are sat in the office at the way station, they could be doing other things when people don't roll up. More hours, they could get through more stuff, yeah.
Thanks.
Tony, thank you. So again, you've had some contact, or probably yourself and with Manus. I'm wondering if there's been some detail around the plans that the Seagull Centre have to set up satellites in Tairua, Pauanui, a couple of other places they're looking to set up satellites. So maybe a further discussion with them, because what we're talking about, or what Anne's talking about pre-sorting some of that material that can be reused, recycled, probably taken back to the Seagull Centre in Thames. So maybe if I can suggest a discussion with Manus and the team about the best way to do that, could be an option, because I know there's been a lot of work gone into that already. So.
No, he's doing impressive work, Magnus, and yeah, he has presented lots of stuff publicly. So thank you for that.
He's right there.
You can tell that. There you go, we'll actually thank you.
Thank you, Tony, much appreciated.
Okay, and I really do thank you for your initiative to get stuck into reducing waste. Thank you.
Thank you, much appreciated. Okay. Do we have Jenna? Thank you. Jenna, let's just make sure we get our pages lined up before you start. Right. Page 176. Now, for some reason, there it is there. Yep. Okay, over to you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jenna Robinson and I live here in Thames. In January, I was on holiday in Australia, in Sydney actually, and I was house sitting rather than being a tourist. So I spent a lot of time in the residential areas. And what I noticed as I walked around was a collection outside people's houses of furniture, occasionally whiteware, and other quite interesting items. And over the course of a couple of days, items started disappearing. In fact, I too would have taken things if I didn't have to bring them back on a plane. And about 3 days later, all these items completely disappeared and the streets were normal again. And of course, this was the way Sydney deals with what they call bulky items. I think here in New Zealand, we might call it inorganic waste. I'm not sure if that's the term, but I take it by your nods that it is. Auckland, I know, has a collection of inorganic waste. But it's always been a disappointment to me that here in my area, in my region, we don't have that. I appreciate that geographically this area is quite different, and what's simple and easy in a city isn't so simple in an area where housing is spread out. I don't think that means that we should ignore the issue and do nothing. So if you live in Thames or anywhere on the Coromandel, what do you do if you've got a worn out settee to dispose of or a fridge that no longer works? A few of the charity shops will collect, but they'll only collect things that are disposed, that they can sell. If something's too damaged for them to get rid of, what do you do with it? You might have a ute, you might have a trailer and a tow bar, and you might be able to take it to your local transfer station. But many of us here don't have transport like that. As has already been said, the demographic here is elderly and there are people with disabilities. We don't all have the ability to dispose of our bulky items. So what do you do with it? I heard on television last night that illegal dumping has increased by 280% in 3 years. That's a possibility too, that if we don't address the issue, people may illegally dump things that they can't dispose of any other way. So I'm sitting here before you asking you to please consider providing some service. Even only once a year would be an incredible help to people in getting rid of these items that are just difficult to get rid of. It sounds like I'm creating more rubbish for you rather than less. But the rubbish is there, whether we look at it or whether we avoid looking at it. And of course, it's always possible, once it's collected, to harvest from it those items which are saleable or reusable. It doesn't just have to go to landfill. Just as a little aside here, I don't know how many of you have heard of urban miners in Cambridge, where a group of residents meet, I think, twice weekly and literally harvest precious metals out of computer equipment and whiteware to create a financial, basically to make money from it, but also to stop it being thrown away. You know, here in Thames we could be doing the same sort of thing. But that's not really my issue. My issue is, please, can we have something to address the issue of bulky items that are really difficult to dispose of? Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. Any questions?
So this might be an unfair question because if you were just here on holiday, you might not know. But do you know how often they would do that collection of cement?
Yeah, apparently they do it weekly. Although this seems such a big one, I've been on their website, and it's a by-demand service. Their regular one is by a demand service where you put things out the day before. You phone up and on the day that's allocated to your region, and say, this is my address. But you do put things out the day before. But this one was so massive. I think it was like a January celebration. It was a really big one. So sorry, I don't know about the big ones, but right. They do it once a week.
And you said, you know, that people put stuff out and then that would reduce a little bit, presumably as people came along and generally at the end there was like a council or a company yes. truck would come and take the rest of the
yes
right.
In fact, in Germany, what they do in a region of northern Germany, and I think it's once a month, you put things out on a Friday, and on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, any residents are welcome to help themselves to whatever they want. Sunday evening, the tradespeople, I don't really know what tradespeople, but commercial people do the drive-by and take anything that they want. And then on Monday, the council come by and take anything that's left. It's, you know, once the system's set up, it sort of rolls on in quite a good way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come and present the submission. So the next presenter is Helen McKay. Can I just clarify, Mana says Helen presenting independently as well as part of your group?
I think Helen's doing it online.
Yes?
Yeah, I'm independent.
But your group, is she included in that group as well?
Under that umbrella.
At the umbrella. All right. So Helen, are you with us?
I didn't see your name pop up.
Yeah, she's there.
There she is.
Hi. Good morning.
Morena, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. So thank you for making a submission, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. With this strategy review is a welcome opportunity to strengthen the effectiveness of waste minimisation and local resource recovery. We have seen the great work done by the Seagull Centre in Thames and the gold mine in Coromandel, and as a robust and ambitious waste strategy can link the work of community resource recovery centres with the overall waste management service. We feel that the community becomes more engaged with solid waste issues when there is a resource recovery presence at every transfer station. Great accessibility and information is the key to a more successful outcome overall. And with the major roading woes that we face now, there is an even more urgent need to reduce transportation challenges and beef up our local community services. We have found already that our local resource recovery community work in Whangamata, and that is with like e-waste and soft plastics, etc., has improved people's awareness about how they can contribute to reducing their waste and expand their recycling knowledge. With our help and a strong leadership mindset by TCDC, our community can be part of an action plan that sets the bar high for an innovative approach towards a circular economy, as mentioned in the vision, and a resilient and sustainable future. We ask, and I ask, that our community resource recovery group's suggestions be taken very seriously, and that an enhanced and very ambitious waste strategy is confirmed and adopted by TCDC. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Any questions from councillors? I have a question, Helen, if I may. The food waste program that you've got going with your group of volunteers in Whangamata, can you just give us an update on that? How many people are involved and how many units you've got out there at the moment?
Well, we have 4 volunteers, trustees of our organisation, doing the swaps and emptying. We have around 300 units in circulation. They don't all come out at once. So there's a number of bottles are in holiday homes, but they're used regularly when people are here. We have about 12 swap pottle locations, and we generally have around 8 pottles in each location. And daily or every few days, depending on the location, we call round and we empty the pottles. Well, we swap for an empty one and we take the full pottles to a compost bin or a worm farm. We empty them, rinse them, and then put them back in the car or van for the next swap. Yep.
Thank you.
So each pottle holds around, when it's full, around 5 kgs of food. So you can see how, you know, the numbers sort of stacking up about the amount of food scraps that's kept out of landfill that way.
Thank you. Have you given any thought to how that will integrate with the new system that council will start in September?
Well, it's difficult to scale up that sort of hands-on system, but I feel that there could be at a level perhaps to target elderly, places that, you know, like apartment blocks or places that might still need something like that. We haven't really given it much thought because we are wanting to see how this rolls out well, and we're wanting to see what the people ask of us afterwards.
Thank you, Helen. That's much appreciated, and congratulations on all the work that you've done up till now. No other questions of Helen? Okay, thank you once again, and I'm guessing that you'll stay online for the joint presentation that Manus will do a bit later on.
Yes, well, I'll be watching, yes, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, Shakir, welcome. Shakir is on page 460.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present on this. I'm not going to go into heaps of detail. We, from the food waste minimization kind of group here in Thames and the campaign across the peninsula, we work together with the Seagull Centre and the other resource recovery centres to put submission in, and we'll leave most of that for Manus to talk to. I wanted to touch on a few key points. One is to ask Council to take bold leadership on this. It seemed that a 5% decrease in waste to landfill is not bold. It's almost unmeasurable, and considering the amount of waste that we know there is in organic waste that we are already taking out of landfill, and that we're going to be working on further education for recycling and more resource recovery centers and building and construction waste, 5% is behind us already. And so we'd really like to ask that we adopt a much bolder goal, and we believe that 50% is achievable. And we'd like to see actually two separate goals. So one is the waste going to landfill. And we'd like to see a 50% reduction in that. And considering what I just said, we think it's really achievable. And the other one is 10% reduction on all waste, including recycling and so on. And so what that does, it asks all of us, including Council, of course, to say, what are we doing about minimizing waste at source? How do we encourage the public to minimize waste at source, and so on? And how does bylaws do it? How does advocating with central government do it, like Tony was mentioning? How do we achieve that through event planning, and so on and so on? So it's a different way of thinking about it, and I think that putting a goal will help us think in that way. The other key point that I wanted to mention is about commitment. We totally understand and relate to that idea that the strategy is for 6 years and that we want it to be relevant, not for the next year, but long term, and we want it to guide decision making. But we also want to see commitment. And it seemed to us that there's not a lot of concrete commitment in the strategy. And so that's probably likely to be best achieved in the action plan. How exactly you write the plan is kind of up to Council. And we've listed a long list of stuff that we want to see included, and we would like to see it included, and we would like to see commitments with time frames, and to see that those things happen. Otherwise, we are just concerned that this big picture, beautiful strategy doesn't materialize into actual action which is then we're kind of sitting there, well, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? So we really like to see the commitment there. And the last kind of point I want to make specifically about the food waste element is it's great that council is going to make, that we're going to start having separate collection. It's awesome. We know it's going to be driving to Tiroria at this point, and that it's not, you know, one day to bring it here, but we would like to see it come here. It's important that it comes here, that it's both becomes a resource for the community. It's an opportunity for so many elements. So, and I know that potentially we could work towards having a feasibility study and then work towards bringing it here, and that's great, and we would like to see that happening. And further than the specific collection from council, the curbside collection, we would like to see support for smaller operations, because the best option is that people do it at home, and there are simple ways to encourage that. If there's funding for people or part funding for people to purchase their own composting, whatever equipment, then more people will do it, and that's the best option. Further than that, if we can support neighborhood groups, so there's in the school in Moana Tairi, and there are plans to start in other schools. So if we can support schools and small community organizations, neighborhood groups, to have local composting facilities, that's great. And then there's obviously the Seagull Center and the Resource Recovery Center, which we want to see taking on a larger perspective of that, in bringing it to be right here local in the different localities across the peninsula. And the other one is around how are we enabling businesses to locate. So we're going to have curbside collection. How are we enabling businesses to work with it and use that service? Maybe they need to pay something, maybe I don't know how that works, but it'd be great if businesses can be part of it.
Thank you, Shakir. Questions? Martin?
Would you anticipate that a feasibility study into the local processing of volumes of food waste collection would have involvement of the community groups to see how that could happen?
Yeah. So I think it's kind of the first step. Let's see what the amounts that we're starting to get, and council will have that data. And then I think that working together with the community groups to design the model that will work for us specifically here, will be able to go and doing a feasibility study without working with the community groups, I think would be a shame.
But because potentially, I have to make sure I say this as a question, potentially I hear that what you're saying is if it's a smaller volume of that food waste spread around the peninsula, not spread around the peninsula, in different places around the peninsula, that could be easier to manage in a composting worm farm situation than a massive truck with tons.
Yes, so there's all of that. So people doing it at home is the best option. People doing it in their neighborhoods and people bringing in the morning when they go to bring their kids to school, bring their waste and drop it there, and there's local composting facilities there, and it feeds directly into local gardens and it feeds people. And we're already doing stuff like that, and we can just increase that.
Yeah.
And so that's the next level. And then a feasibility study will need to determine how many larger facilities we need across the peninsula. I can't say if we need one in every little town or in each area, or someone will need to calculate emissions and whatever. But,
thank you.
Shakir, I have a question. So, are you aware of examples that the community and the council could reach out to of other communities around the country, or even further, where they have done these feasibility studies, they do have examples of localised processing and intermediate and larger scale processing, so that we could get some direction in terms of how this could be done, places to start?
Yeah. And I guess we can send some specific ones if that's helpful. There's actually quite a lot of them. Topo done this thing with financing the household level, and that seemed to have worked really well. There is in Wellington, for example, Kite Cycle we've been operating, local community scale recovery on a neighborhood level. There's another one in Lower Hutt that's based in a school, and there's like a food to table thing, so they do the compost, and they have the gardens, and then they have a cafe kind of situation that fits into that, and that brings it all together. So there's actually plenty of examples, and we'll be more than happy to send some specific things.
Thank you. I appreciate that myself. I'm sure the other councillors would.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Shakir, thank you very much. I know you did a lot of work on this in the background, and it's much appreciated.
Thank you.
So what we have now is we'll invite Marnus to the table, please. And what Marnus has done, if you go to the back of the folders, the last page, which will be 16, there is a joint submission from the Seagull Centre Trust, Whangamata Resource Recovery Centre Trust, which is Helen McCabe's group, Mercury Bay Resource Recovery Trust, Waikapukurua, and Thames Coromandel Food Waste Resource, which is Shakir, have I got that right? That's your group. So this is a joint presentation from the 4 groups. We'll give us extra time because he is presenting on behalf of these groups. Welcome.
Yes, thanks, Lynn. And yes, thanks for this opportunity to present here today. Yes, we decided to put together what you can call a mega presentation, largely just to get as wide a consultation as possible and to try and make a bigger impact as possible. So to that regard, all those individual organisations had did their own workshopping around documents and did a whole lot of work themselves. We then came together and shared ideas, and we also held public workshops, which were attended by councillors, community board members, Ratepayers Residents Association, and just ordinary people. So we held those workshops in Thames and Whitianga, and we got a reasonably good attendance, and we got really good feedback on that. So so out of that, we've submitted this a document. It goes into a reasonable amount of detail. So I don't want to go through all of it. I'll just go through some of the headings and highlights. I hope everybody reads it and gets through it and has a look at it.
Sorry, Mars will just get the sound. Panel is there, but she's muted. So thank you.
Yep. What we tried to do was to see what had been presented and see if we could add to it, enhance it, trying to make it into a workable document that we could be proud of and work to over the next 7 years. So we felt that a strategy should be a forward-looking document, should be relevant, and should drive the decision making for the next few years. And a successful strategy does that, and also tries to align itself with most of the stakeholders. And in one regard, it's well aligned with, you can say, the national strategies. That's Tom and Taylor have done a good job to align that. But we felt needed to align better with organisations like ourselves, and the strategies that local groups have. And our strategies are actually reasonably simple in that we're just looking largely to reduce waste going to landfill, and we're looking at local solutions. There's a whole lot of other things that fall off that, but those are the bases of what we're looking at. And so out of that, we sought to enhance the documents to show, not to show, but to have a leadership element. That's the document wasn't just a job description of some sort. It actually had elements that showed potential leadership going forward. And so you'll see right throughout the document we've tried to do that. As Kate said, we also looked to put in the document real commitment. The 10% or 5% reduction in overall waste going to landfill in the next few years, that's a margin of error. That's not even a real target. So just to clarify what Shakib was saying, we're looking at a 50% reduction in curbside waste going to landfill, given that you're removing the food waste. Other examples like Tauranga recently done it have achieved 50% almost from year one. So that's a realistic target. It's there. It's been proven it can happen. Why not use it and celebrate it when you achieve it and measure it? And that leads into the other thing is measurement is such an important tool. Getting data. If you don't measure something, you can't manage it. It's fair to say over the last few years that hasn't been a strong point. Data hasn't been available, hasn't driven decision making. We advocate for a lot better decision data collection, and what we're advocating is transparency around that data, and also what we're looking for is what we would call a mass balance. Knowing what's coming into the system and know what's going out, that balances up. And the reason for doing that, it's an accounting function. If you find gaps in it, you know there's something wrong. It also gives you a way better understanding of what you're dealing with. We'd also like in the measurement to look at and get data on volumes that the council doesn't control. And one of those being building waste. Council controls virtually zero building waste. It all goes directly to landfill, outside the council systems. What we've also advocated for is greater involvement of the community and the community groups like ourselves. It's our view that moving forward, waste minimisation initiatives are going to be largely driven by the community groups, and therefore they need to be more and more involved in decision making and consultation around things that are happening in the waste management sphere. The other issue we want to raise is education, and it'd be fair to say that you won't achieve a lot in waste minimisation unless you've got an associated education component alongside it. And the Seagull Centre has shown over the last year that having a community-led waste educator can make a significant difference and ongoing difference. We've got a real opportunity in the next few months when the whole waste system in the peninsula is changing. Food waste bins, wheelie bins replacing the blue bags. There's an opportunity to implement a huge education program around that. And that can make a huge difference. And it's our view that council-driven is fine, but I don't think it gets the cut through that community-led education initiatives can get. So we would advocate that we work with council on a community-led initiative rather than a solely council-led initiative. The other one we're looking at is regulations. You heard probably yesterday that the government is implementing a whole new waste management minimisation regime, and that's fantastic. It's also very timely and just shows how at a national level we've got to obviously fit into, and the council's got to fit into what's happening at that level. And that's great. The standardisation of recyclables, the food waste initiative. We think those are great. However, at a local level, there's a whole lot of that the council can do, and we're advocating really strongly for a waste bylaw. And the waste bylaw can drive a whole lot of positive things for the council in terms of enforcement, in terms of waste minimisation, and education initiatives. And we feel one of the pressing and issues is to get a waste bylaw in as quickly as possible. Around specific, you can say projects or issues that we would look to advocate for, and Shakir has touched on them. We would really like to see the local processing of the food waste collected, either at a central local location or at a more localised level, like the whangmata are doing. And we really advocate that we look a lot deeper into that, and we've proposed to do a feasibility study. The council have come back and said we just need to wait a bit because we've got the data. We actually advocate that we don't have time to do that. We'd rather do it now. We don't have to wait for the data. There's plenty of examples around the country. There's plenty of data you can extrapolate. You don't need to have actual data on volumes. I've touched on the education role, and again, the Seagull Centre put a local waste educator role. A year ago, we put that in place, and we're going to continue with that. We feel that's been very successful, and we'd like to continue with that. The waste bylaw, we just touched on that. That's something that we would like to see implemented as a matter of, I wouldn't say urgency, but a matter of priority. Building and construction wastes. There's largely a waste that bypasses council systems. That is going to change. The Mercury Bay Resource Recovery Centre is establishing a building waste processing facility, so that's the first start. That will hopefully be up and running by the end of this year, we hope. And we hope that's going to make a significant dent in the building waste going to landfill. We'll further advocate that facilities in Whangmatai and in Thames are viable, and we should look at establishing those. But those will need to be driven in tandem with the waste bylaw. I don't think it can be established without the waste bylaw. It needs to be backed up by the waste bylaw. And then the last item on the agenda or that we would like to see put in place is to achieve a greater rate of waste diversion. We would like to see the operation of the waste transfer stations migrated to a community-run organisation. Some of you might know, during the tender process last year, we tried to pair up with a number of the contractors to see if we could make that happen, and we eventually engaged with Waste Management on that, and Waste Management thought it was a very innovative initiative, and they included that in their tender. And so now that Waste Management have won the tender, we're now looking for that initiative to progress. We've got a memorandum of understanding with Waste Management that they would they would progress that at the earliest opportunity. We're not talking about the individual transfer stations operated by individual community groups. We're looking at establishing a professional organisation backed by a reputable organisations that have got experience and have got the expertise. Yes, and that's really it.
Thank you, Manus. Peter Revel, question?
Yes, thank you. Manus, just as I read your submission, I'm left with the impression that there would be no financial impact on ratepayers, that everything that you're suggesting would be able to be funded from other sources. Am I reading that correctly?
Correct. That I probably neglected to say that. Yes, and that's one of the benefits that we bring to the table is that most of the initiatives we've got on the table have got no impact on the ratepayers. We've also got access to funding streams that the council doesn't have. So yes, the answer is absolutely yes. It won't have any impact.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Other questions?
Slightly cheeky. It's based on one of the speakers earlier. So Gina, who's here in Thames, was talking about an inorganic rubbish collection, and I keep my thoughts to myself on that, but I'm worried that some of the things would then end up in the tip when they shouldn't, in the hole when they shouldn't be in the hole. And I wondered whether you considered that this group of resource recovery trusts would be an appropriate vehicle, excuse the pun, for that, because I also worry about the inaccessibility of the refuge transfer stations for people like our first speaker, who have a disability, live with a disability, who might not be able to take their goods to a centre such as yourselves, and therefore might end up getting dumped or just conveniently put somewhere. So I wondered if you had any comment about whether that was an appropriate place for the resource recovery centres to sit in the waste recovery.
Yes, and not so long ago, the Seagull Centre used to do collections.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it becomes a waste. You become a waste management contractor then, in that you are picking up stuff that can't be reused, and so and then invariably people don't really want to pay for it because it's so you're sort of left in the middle. So what the Seagull Centre does is it does. It's not on requests. It's we go and assess. We do listen,
yeah.
And we do pickups on not on request, but on you can say, deeper scrutiny.
Okay.
Yes. It is something I've had thoughts about, and possibly maybe once a year doing a inorganic type of collection and offering that service, possibly, but I'd have to think really carefully about it, because it is a bit of a burden. Seagull Centre and the other resource recoveries are charities, so we don't have a lot of staff and we don't have endless resources, but we could look at it. Yes, it is a dilemma.
Absolutely, Pearl.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question, if I may. Have you got any thoughts about, obviously, we're facing a rates increase, and a big chunk of that rates increase is the cost of waste collections and recoveries. Have you got any thoughts about how individual households could address the cost of their own household waste disposal and reduce those costs, whether it's a combination of food waste, recycling things through the Seagull Centre, or basically just reducing the volume of waste and the cost to the individual household?
Yes, I think what came out of the workshops that we did was the not so lack of knowledge, but it's the dearth of knowledge individuals have in the waste management process and systems that are there. From what items can get recycled. You get a range of residents here, you get vastly divergent answers on what you can actually recycle. And even people like myself get sometimes confused, and I'm intimately involved in things. So it's quite hard, and that's where we think the education role will play a really important part in having a library of tools and resources available on the council website, etc., that can be used by anybody to drive to reduce their waste and to reduce their cost. Also, through the community groups, ongoing education. It's not just one-offs every now and again, it's ongoing all the time. I know in Whitianga at the moment, with the recyclables not being collected, Waihi Tukarua is getting a message out almost every day how to reduce your volumes going to landfill, how to reduce recyclables, etc., to stop it. So it's actually almost an opportune time to actually do it. But that could be ramped up to another level. This is just, one person just doing it in their spare time.
Thank you. So obviously education is a critical part of that.
Correct, yes.
And council and community groups working together. Is there an opportunity for incentive programs, or running something through schools, or turning it into competitions and making it fun?
Yeah, we've launched a scheme in the schools where the local schools in Thames at the moment, so it's a term-by-term prize where a person is recognised for their work in sustainability, picked by the teachers, and then we've got an annual prize, a larger prize for a project or group or individual that's contributed the most to a sustainable project in the school. So we've only launched in the last few weeks, so it's only starting, but we've already got 3 local schools on board, and I think we've already got the first prize being awarded tomorrow at Thames South School. So the idea is to roll that throughout the peninsula. It's complementary to something like Enviro schools. We're not trying to do what they do. It's kind of a complementary thing, yes.
Your education officer is 1 or 2 days a week?
Correct, yes.
Is it 2 days?
2 days.
2 days.
One for the Seagull Centre and one on it's council-funded projects. Okay. So we work with council, we work on soft plastics, Tetra Pak type of things, battery drives, and e-waste drives, etc.
Thank you. Councillor Gottlieb, you've got a question?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I missed quite a bit of your submission, but I did read your submission and I'm very impressed with it. And the education and what you talk about happening locally is extremely good. The concern I have is over half the properties are owned by absentee owners, and that message often doesn't get to them, and in and out. And we're going to be now having a system which I'm very suspect about many of those people following it as they perhaps should, and we're just going to have a plastic horizon with all these now 4 different lots of plastic for each property. Have you got any comment on that?
What I would say is that waste management systems are being standardised across the country. That came out yesterday, and I'm assuming, and I wouldn't know, but I assume what the council's doing is aligning with that national strategy. Would that be correct? Yes. So it's not something that it almost is not even a choice for the council. It's something that the council would have to go down anyway. Is to have those bins. So whether it's a good thing or bad thing, it's aligning with national strategy. So ultimately, it's probably a good thing.
Thank you, Marnus. Does that help answer your question, Gary?
Yes, thank you. I just, certainly in areas where there's over 2/3 are absentee, I just shake my head on occasions what currently happens with the plastic, and now it's going to be even more worrying.
Thank you. Any other questions of Marnus? Marnus, once again, thank you. An extraordinary amount of work gone into that. I know from personal experience how much went into before this was prepared. So thank you for all your work and for your contribution. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Marnus.
So we've got Pamela Greeley from Coromandel. Pamela, are you with us?
I am.
Welcome.
Hey, how are you all? Karakia. Lovely to see you all, albeit online. Thank you for all the hard work that people have done in getting this together. It's really appreciated. And some of those questions, I think one of the biggest things that ECDC can do for us as consumers is to put a lot more upward pressure on regional governments and on central government to make sure that the onus isn't on us as consumers. So we have very little choice when we buy things other than making stuff ourselves, and a lot of people aren't in that fortunate position of either having the time to do it or having the money to buy all the basic ingredients to buy what they need, and so they're buying things which come in plastic, which need to be thrown away. They can't afford to buy the better pots of yogurt that might be much more easily recyclable. So we do have to make sure that all of this minimizing of waste doesn't fall solely on the shoulders of people who are being encouraged to make better choices but don't always have the means to do that. So I do want to make that really clear, that that's something would be incredibly valuable for you to do for us. Our local RTSs are all doing a great job under some really tough conditions. But we really need to
Pamela, can I interrupt momentarily? We're losing your signal. I wonder if you wouldn't mind turning off your video and we'll just have the audio. It might help the signal because we're losing quite a bit of what you're saying.
help?
Yeah, try that. Thank you. That might work.
Cool. So just as a quick recap, can you please put pressure upwards on regional and central government to take some of the burden off the consumer being the only one who can make a difference in this waste minimisation? I also want to just shout out to the local RTSs who are all doing an amazing job, but there's more and more things going into them. We've got rampant consumerism, people trying to get rid of things that they don't like the colour of. Our actual resource recycle centres are getting overfull. So a lot of the time they can't take things in because there's too much stuff come in already and there's nowhere to store it. So we do have a problem with, again, it's consuming. So that might be part of what Taman's about with his education program, that people actually realise that you don't need to change your kettle every year. We do need an inorganic collection because, again, I think I heard somebody else mention this. A lot of people don't have trailers or utes that they can take large items up to the RTSs with. So they either become dumped outside their house, which is a problem because that's not helpful to anyone. And actually, I have concerns about more and more landfill is a problem, given how precarious our land is in the Coromandel at the moment. To have more landfill, it's just potentially creating disaster, that we end up like they did in the South Island, where the landfill burst its banks and it ended up in a river. So we need to just be really mindful again about more landfill, which is if we don't stop consuming, we're going to get. And the key thing for me though is food waste. More than 50% of waste that goes into landfill is food waste, and we really have to do something about that. We talk about compost, but you can't compost. There needs to be something that we can do about that. And I think it would be education things. I'm really a bit rambly today. Sorry, I didn't really. The biggest thing is we need to wind up strategy. I think we do at the moment. I think we've got lots of little pockets of things as a council that we're looking at doing, but we don't have a real clear overall plan about how we're going to make all these work with the education programs, with different issues in each area, with the issue, as somebody mentioned already, of the absentee property owners. So I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that one of the key things that we could do would be to have a food waste collection as part of our waste minimisation strategy in the peninsula. Thank you. I'm going to stop now.
Pamela, thank you. So I'll open it up to the councillors if they have any questions. No direct questions. I just have a question for you. The comment that you made about bringing cohesion to all of the different elements, you've had a chance to read through the proposed strategy?
Yes, it was a skim, I must admit, but I think there's always more we can do to get a joined up approach. So
are you confident that the proposed strategy does bring some cohesion to things like the food waste processing, the education strategies and RTS operations and community recycling? You've obviously been involved in some of that with the kilt operations in Coromandel. Are you confident that the strategy is heading in the right direction?
I think it's heading in the right direction. So there's still a lot more that we can do, but it is heading in the right direction. I also have a huge concern. Obviously, we've got some major issues in the area now with our infrastructure, that money will be cut from this because it's quite a simple thing to take money from.
Thank you, Pamela. That's some very, very good points that you make, and we really appreciate that, and appreciate all the work that you've done in your local community as well. If there are no further questions, we'll say thank you, and we'll move to the next one. Appreciate it, Pamela.
Thank you.
So we've got an apology from Joanna Mannington, and we've got Nira here. And I think we owe you an apology. Was there a lapse in communication?
Your story, it doesn't matter.
So please accept my apologies. And would you like to come up and...
Thanks.
And Liam,
yes.
I need to go, unfortunately.
Thank you, Peter. All the best. Appreciate it. So, can we know?
Yeah, no, he's already sent me his.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just going to get you to watch something first, but the three things I'd like to discuss is how we can effectively use our green waste on the peninsula, all towns, and how education is the key, because our future leaders are our children, and the importance of TCDC actually working with the community, because I'm suffering from the lack of that already, how TCDC doesn't communicate with the community. And the third one is, it's called Back to Eden Gardening Documentary.
Yeah, can I just, I'm going to ask you to stop there. I know that you've just had a rush drive. Can I suggest that we take a pause? You have a cup of tea?
No, I just want to get it over and done with and get out of here, really. Thanks. It's called Back to Eden Gardening Documentary. The one? It's your written garden. If you could just change the word method to, yeah, that's it, yeah. And 15 minutes into it, you slide along. Yeah. I think I just he's a bit religious, you can get past the this is a really great to compose something, it takes about 108 days, 120 days, 108, 120 days, for something that's great carbon that can then go straight off back onto soil. So if we could invest in this, back in the days of Harold Abrahamson, who suggested this years and years and years ago, as well as compacting our cardboard into sellable fire starters to the community. But that's what you get out after 100 and something days, which we can sell back to the community, and TCDC can put it on all their green spaces instead of spraying it. Because when visitors come to this region, all they see on our roadside is dead. And it's quite embarrassing. We can just pause there because you basically are intelligent enough to get the gist of this. But if we did this in Whirianga and Coromandel and all the places that have big enough areas to do so, what we're doing is, and we could work in partnership with people who have already got this, but if we invest in this, you will then only have a person going around and putting all this great soil, this carbon, back onto our roadsides instead of killing it with glass spikes are. You could make, after 5 years, you'll see the soil being alive again, unlike what we're seeing in Whirianga with the death and destruction of most of our areas with mass housing going in. we're losing our trees. This is a way that you can solve the problem very easily. Okay, and children know how to do this because we compost at Mercury Bay Area School. Our horticulture group does it. And if you did this in the grander scale, you need two things. A person who works with a front loader and maybe a mechanic who knows how to keep that grinder operating if it gets stuck. But this is a great documentary if you could share it, especially how you've outsourced to another company to look after our green areas, that if they could just put this stuff back on our sides of where it's all bare and plant natives, we will have a beautiful corridor of things to show the people when they come here. It's really embarrassing if you currently go down the coast, you'll see nothing but landslips and stuff because we're not even holding the structure together. That's one way. Another way I thought was investing in glass, because I live opposite it, I hear the glass, I see the mountain of plastic and the mountain of cardboard from my home. Nothing's getting done about it. It's been there for a long time. So that cardboard that we get in big mountain forms, I've been to WOMAD, zero waste in their events. You go to Whirianga event here, all you see is plastic on the ground and our students having to pick it all up because there is no education around any of our events to be a zero waste place. If any of you have been to WOMAD, not a single bit of rubbish is dropped on the ground at any of those events because it's all about education. And you go to a Whirianga event, whether it's the Solid Festival or anything like that, all you see is plastic on our grounds, crushed up cans and things like that. It's just the culture of and the lack of education. The other thing is recycling our glass. We could ask and create industries around getting a glass machine where it could be a volunteer's job from 10 to 12. It could be someone who's got a disability who wants employment that could be coming in on an hour basis, feeding the glass. And it could be Monday and Tuesdays are white glass days. Wednesday and Thursday could be the green glass days, and Friday and through to Saturday could be the brown glass days. But we could be making that into sand that's sold to potters in different coloured glasses. We could be putting it back onto our beaches to restore and regenerate a lot of loss of our beachfront. There's a lot we could do with the mountain of glass that sits there in Whirianga. I can only speak about Whirianga because I am directly opposite it. So the mound is higher and larger and nothing seems to get done about it. It's not moving anywhere, it's just staying there, and we could be utilising it as an industry, a small industry. It could be made out for people with disabilities that have regular work. It could be our elderly generation. There's a lot of people there in Whirianga that would come and do a couple of hours as a job, you know, things like that.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Nero?
But education is key. I'm sad to see that Joe's not here because Joe's done heaps in our school to reduce food waste, you know, and she's...
Nero, I have a couple of questions, and I'm very aware of the work that Joe's done. She's done a fantastic job.
Yeah, we've got gardens that are feeding our students now, you know, and our community, the gardens at school are also contributing to our Monday meals.
So just to clarify, you would like to see more focus on composting and recovering green waste?
I am just mainly focusing on Papatua, Nuku Earth Mother, because what TCDC is doing to it's just embarrassing. I've travelled 38 countries around the world, and I've travelled a lot of places in New Zealand as well. And you don't see death like you see it on TCDC roads, you know. We should be...
events education, you would like to see verification
Zero waste.
around events. Thank you for that. And maybe innovative solutions around glass recycling.
Yeah, there is lots of ways we can recycle the glass there.
Anyone have any other questions of Nera? Thank you so much.
Most important is the green waste.
If you can email that link to us.
Oh, I can do that.
I've written documents to you guys before, and I already have all of these things
Thank you.
listed.
Appreciate your time. So we've got Donald online there.
Yeah.
Do we have a submission number for Donald?
Yeah, it's page 450, but there's also an attachment.
Okay. Donald, can you hear us?
It's 640.
So, folks,
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can now. So what we're doing, we had a morning tea slot in there, but we've only got Donald and Liz. So with the permission of everyone, we'll go ahead and hear Donald's submission, and then that'll be us for that part of the session today. Are we okay to do that?
Yep.
Thank you. And that way we don't hold Donald up. So 450. Is Liz with you, Donald, or are you presenting on your own?
I'm presenting on my own because Liz had one clash today, and it clashed with this time. So.
Okay. I'm sure you'll do a fabulous job. All right.
So
over to you.
I'm speaking on behalf of the Whangapawa Community Association. We're an association of about 180, 190 members at the moment, and we represent the community of Whangapawa, which is a little bit different from many other. We're about 95% batch owners and about 5% residents, and that obviously produces an enormous variation in workload for TCDC. Our situation is reasonably seasonal, well, very seasonal. I guess there's a couple of general points I'd like to make to start with, and then get into the body of the submission. The first thing I'd like is a bit of clarification. The waste to landfill reduction target of 5% by 2029, was that meant to be 5% a year, or is that just the overall drop for the entire program?
So my understanding is it's the overall drop for the entire program. It's not a per annum target,
okay.
But
that's how the document reads.
Yeah, so this is a discussion document, so we're interested in your thoughts about the feasibility of that, or whether you think it should be different.
We feel that that's a bit unambitious. Doing some numbers at the moment, you're on 124 kilograms per capita target by 2022. Now, assuming you hit that, the 5% reduction will get it to 117 kilograms per capita by 2029, and Auckland's target is 88 per capita. So that seems to us to be not overly challenging. There might be things that are specific to TCDC which might get harder than for the Auckland City Council, but we would think that if you were going to have an effective waste minimisation program, 5% over the next 5 years, or 2029 is further away than that, seems unambitious to us.
Thank you.
And we would encourage you to increase that target. Despite what the previous speakers mentioned, there seems to be a very strong focus on education in your strategy document. We think most people are aware of the need for waste minimisation. What we need is action-orientated programs which motivate people to do so. I think most of us are aware of the requirement to reduce waste, and we would encourage more action and perhaps less focus on education, because we think education by itself is insufficient. We are also interested on the effect of this program on coastal bins. We see these as a very good service. Our members, many of our members are using them, and they would like to know if there's some sort of reduction if you make a commitment. The coastal bin service is weekly. It tends to come when you want it to, rather than routinely, and they do replace the bins. They also, as part of their service, have an inside bin liner. So there are a number of things about them that are very positive. We, as a community, have used them. Well, many of our members, I personally don't use them, but I'm aware that most of it, well, probably half of our members are using coastal bins at the moment. As a general statement, we agree with the aspirations and goals outlined in the waste minimisation program, and working towards a circular economy makes some sense, but it is very difficult in a situation where 95% of the ratepayers are in fact batch owners and are not permanent residents. We seek, so we need to, I guess, somewhat selfishly think about the Christmas periods where there are a dramatic increase in the requirements for waste collection or waste reduction programs. I'm aware that our community swells by a factor of at least 20 over Christmas, and I realise that puts enormous load on the council and the council staff, but we think your program needs to have more focus on seasonality, and I'm relatively short on ideas of what that looks like, but it seems to us that if you've got programs that need to have a focus towards the summer months, because that's when the population swells and that's when the demand for your services increases. We see that you've moved to a collection of, or you're suggesting an organics collection on a weekly basis and a general rubbish on a fortnightly basis. And obviously that's having separate bins for both organics and general rubbish, and a third one for recycling and the small one for glass. We support the removal of the blue bag, because the blue bag has been a problem in the sense that the gulls just rip them apart, and batch owners who leave on Sunday night who put the blue bag out by the time Tuesday morning comes along or Tuesday afternoon for collection, the bag can be scattered all over the, or the contents of the bag scattered all over the street. You're well aware of this problem, and the moving to bins seems to us to be a step in the right direction. The challenge for us is that you've got 3 or 4 bins out on the sides of the street, and you're a batch owner. You might only come down once a month, even less frequently during a large part of the year. Those bins are going to be out on the street, and it's unrealistic to expect the 5% who are local residents to spend their Tuesday afternoon putting bins away. So we are cautious about about this and the sheer number of bins that you're talking about. There's in our submission we talk about the organics collection and about how those bins really need to be rinsed out because organic bins, by their very nature, tend to leave residue inside them, and they tend to get smelly. And we see this as a bit of a challenge going forward. It's a challenge that we're happy to address, but we're not quite sure of how we resolve that.
Donald, we've got probably just under a minute left, if that's okay.
Right. Yep. You talk about alternative drop-off points. Well, the councillors who have been around for a while will remember the Moloch saga and the difficulty of finding a place which is acceptable to the whole community. So in principle, alternative drop-off points are good, but it is a challenge to find them in a place that's positive or geographically close enough. The last point is the compactor. The compactor, which was cited over Christmas, did work quite well, except it does have a tendency to jam. It can get overfilled. And it's not particularly great for waste minimisation. So those are some of the solutions that have been tried, and we thank the council for putting the compactor within range of the community. But it is there are some drawbacks with that solution as well. So I guess that's a very hurried submission, but I hope I've made some points.
Thank you, Donald, and we do have your detailed additional submission here, so that's much appreciated, and that goes into quite a lot of the areas that you've covered already. Councillor Gottlieb has a question.
Mute.
Unmute, please, Gary.
I was just going to suggest that everyone read page 6, 14 and 15, because you set out very carefully various issues that are of concern. And what you do raise as an example, probably the most extreme example of the occupation situation that occurs. And when you get a unique situation such as yours, where 5% are permanent, I think you set out very well in your submissions, and you do refer to can ratepayers opt out? What were you considering there?
I beg your pardon, could you repeat that?
You talked about in the second to last paragraph, you talked about is there an option for ratepayers to opt out?
Yes, so that's to do with the coastal bins situation. I mean, people are paying for a service there, which they believe is more useful to them in a sense, because you can they only come when you ask them to, and they put the bin back and they use bin liners, all of those things are positive. And you end up paying for what you get. And what some members have asked is if people are using coastal bins for their weekly and fortnightly collection system, is there a rebate on or a non-charge of a levy?
Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. Donald, a question from me. Are your members aware that the new contract, which starts in September this year, it's not a suggestion, it will be the new system. That's what's going to happen. So the waste strategy that we're working on here, the new systems do not form part of that. Obviously, we want feedback on the whole waste management and minimisation proposed strategy, but on the 1st of September, the new systems will kick in, including the food waste bins. They're not compulsory. You still have the ability to put food waste into your 140 litre bin if that's the preferred option. But it does, and there's been a lot of feedback from the community over the last couple of years that they want options for disposing of food waste because it reduces the amount of material going to landfill. So I have another question about coastal bins. For those of you using coastal bins, what's the system there for separating out different types of materials in the bins, or does everything go in the same bin? Recycling, food waste, cardboard?
I mean, to a certain extent, it's a they are working off your system in the sense that people are using the recycle. So the yellow top bin, they're using those for their recycling, and their coastal bin for their rubbish, their household rubbish, organics, non-recyclable. So they are reusing, they are still recycling, and we would encourage all our members to continue to recycle because, well, it's an appropriate thing for individuals to do in the community. We want to encourage recycling. We're not suggesting anybody move away from the recycling side. It is the rubbish collection piece that is up. That is, I think at this moment, coastal bins give a better service than the blue bags because they don't have the same vulnerability to gull. Whether the new bins that you guys are using are going to go to on the 1st of September produce an equivalent service or a lesser service to coastal bins, I guess that's up for the for history to find out.
Thank you, Donald. Any other questions? Fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to make your submission and for the detailed addendum. That's much appreciated.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to involve us in and while we are a small community, waste minimisation is an important thing for us, and we would encourage the council to actively involve the community in support of those targets. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. All the best. Okay. So what we'll do now is we will have morning tea, and then the staff would like the opportunity to have a bit of a debrief, and we've also got a Tom Taylor update as well.
Yeah, so for the chair, we will close the hearing now, and then we will have that conversation after morning tea.
What are you seeing?
Precisely. Do we have to move?
Yeah, with resolutions.
To receive them or to receive them?
Yeah, I'll move that we receive them.
Thank you.
Aye.
Yeah.
Such a group. automated process.
aggressive.
There he is.
Passive aggressive.
So you're being careful, Gary, with your
Gary, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. So we'll have about a 20-minute break and then we'll be back on again, will we?
Yes, thank you.
Or shall I log out, Ariana, and then log in again?
Yes, that might be helpful, Gary, because
Okay.
it'll just be for councillors discussion only.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, I'll log out now. Okay, thank you.
John.
Thank you.
Rebecca. No, not taking any questions on the subject.